Yes. Still not seeing it on YouTube.
Because it's on delay.
I think we're live.
Let me go and check.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we are.
Let's start.
Okay. Hello. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is our first virtual meetup in 2025. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is our first virtual meetup in 2025. Hello.
Mecha, JJ. There is some mecha. Yeah.
I know. Okay, so that was me twice. But welcome to this virtual meetup. It's good to have you with us, and thanks for joining. We have our team as previous meetups, and we have a guest also today, Natan Yellin from robusta.dev. Thanks for joining us, Natan. And
it's a pleasure to be here.
Cool, thank you. Thanks. And we posted in the agenda for today earlier, and we'll have just a bit of a chat to begin with. But the agenda for today is that we'll do the VictoriaMetrics roadmap update, first of all, and then by Roman, and then Natan, you're going to talk about an open source AI agent that can sit on top of VictoriaMetrics. And then Jose is going to give us an update on VictoriaMetrics Cloud. And Alex, you're going to tell us about the latest in VictoriaLogs, which I know people are looking forward to. And then we'll do an update on community news and what's been happening in the VictoriaMetrics community. And feel free to ask questions along the way, and we'll answer most of the questions towards the end of the meetup. But feel free to ask along as we go. So thanks for joining today. Where are all of you joining from? I'm in Dublin, Ireland, and it's surprisingly nice, beautiful weather, blue sky. So we will talk about the weather for a minute or two, if that's okay. And then we can jump to other topics.
Okay, I will continue talking about the weather. Actually, so you took the good weather from Spain, right? I'm from Madrid, in Spain, and here it's been like 2 weeks, like raining a lot, and yeah, actually we have some alarms now that the Madrid River may overflow or something. So yeah, it's pretty not normal at all. So yeah, it's good to be at home at least. So where are you, Natan?
Sorry, I was on mute. So I'm calling in from a little bit north of Tel Aviv, and it feels like every year winter arrives later. Now, maybe that's just one of these distortions where like it feels like as a kid, like summer vacation was forever, and then as an adult, it's shorter. But it certainly feels like every year winter is coming later, and that's certainly true by me.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and in our case, it will be very simple. I'm based in Poland and on the call from Krakow, and we had awful weather till today. Today is the first good day. It's like +8, and I'm happy it becoming more warm outside. What about you, Aliaksandr?
I'm also based in Krakow. Probably you know about this. And I disagree with you. The weather was excellent a few days ago. It was -6 degrees, and it felt very good. And before that, a week ago, the temperature was +24 Celsius degrees for those who are from US and don't know about Celsius and Fahrenheit difference.
Yeah, I'm the last one. Artem, also with guys in Krakow. Yeah, that's roller coaster here. Cluster about the buzzer 22 -4 at night. Today it's about 10. Tomorrow will be 15, something like that. I generally speaking, I'm okay with what's going on. And this is current, like I believe 6 minutes past 6 says time, and we can start.
Yeah, let's
Sure.
start.
Cool. Then Roman, up to you.
Yep, thank you.
And
shall we-
I'm going to remove those not speaking then for now.
Okay, I'll start. Hello, everyone. That's just a regular update that we do every quarter. What's new in VictoriaMetrics in Q1 2025. And my name is Roman. You've probably seen me on GitHub or somewhere elsewhere. And yeah, let's go. Don't waste time. So in Q1 2025, we made 8 releases. I mean, 8 number increases. So the current latest open source version is 1.13. And next VictoriaMetrics release, which will be 1.14, will happen next Monday. So very soon. And also we had separate releases for LTSs. And what is important is that 197 LTS line has reached its end of support, and it was the support ended in January. So now we have a new LTS line based on the 110 release. So for those who use an LTS versions, it's time to upgrade from 197 to 110 or 102. And just to remind that LTS releases, they last like 1 year. So it means that 102 will end its support in August this year, and 110 will end its support next January. So if you're thinking to update, better to update to the new LTS line. Okay, let's go about new features. So thanks to J-Kun, starting from 109, we got Marathon service discovery support. You can check the documentations on the slide, but usually we have just this SD configs documentation page on docs.victoriametrics.com, where you can find all the service discoveries that we support, and Marathon SD configs is among them. So thanks J-Kun and Nikolai, if I'm not mistaken, for reviewing this pull request, for adding support of more and more services to VM agent. Thanks to Zahar, in 109, we also got improved resource reduction, basically for those who use in retention and downsampling filters. So how this resource reduction actually works is that we now use a separate cache for index lookups when we're doing retention filters and downsampling filters. If you are not familiar with them, like you can specify a time series selector that need to be downsampled or to have a custom retention. And in order for this to work, VictoriaMetrics need to do an index lookup. And before, it was using the regular caches, the same caches that I used during querying. And that could have an effect on like polluting those caches with the information that was never queried, just because VictoriaMetrics had to do lookups inside. So now it's using a separate cache, which is very limited in the size, but still it's super efficient in this case. And it doesn't affect the regular memory usage and doesn't pollute caches during normal work of the VictoriaMetrics. So for those who are using these features, starting from 109, VictoriaMetrics will become more efficient in terms of memory usage. Okay, in 110, we also got support of quoted metric name syntax. For those who don't know, in Prometheus 3.0, there was added a support of UTF-8 characters in metric names and in label keys. VictoriaMetrics supported that long before, from the very beginning, and we, like users, could store UTF-8 characters in metric names and label keys and query them. But what is important in Prometheus 3.0 is that they updated syntax of PromQL for querying such labels or metric names. For example, now you can just type metric name inside of the curly braces in the quotes without specifying this the service label key name with it. And this works also for label keys. So we added that possible, actually made it possible. He added support for this syntax to the MetricSQL library, and VictoriaMetrics now also supports such expressions, and also it works with the Prettify button, which is built in the VM UI and in the VictoriaMetrics data source, which could auto-format your MetricSQL expressions. That specifically useful when you have big expressions and you just click on the magic button and it becomes formatted and easy to read. Yeah, so thanks to Ted possible for implementing this. And also you can check the key concepts. It was updated to reflect the new way for querying metric names. It's optional. It's not that something changed, but it's optional. Okay, what else? In 1.11, Nikolai fixed the long buzzering issue with VMO's proxying request to the services. So as you know, every VictoriaMetrics component has this service HTTP handlers for example, for /metrics to scrape metrics of the component. And if you have a service which sits behind the VMOs, and VMOs is the only way to get to that service, there is no way to get /metrics of that service behind VMOs, because VMOs will intercept all the /metrics requests to it and will show its own metrics instead of metrics of the service. So in 1.11, Nikolai added HTTP internal listen address flag, which allows to run to configure VMOs to start listening for these default HTTP handlers on the separate port. So you can configure VMOs to actually respond on /metrics on a separate port, and all the other requests will be forwarded to the downstream. And you can scrape and VMOs and backends behind it. Thanks, Nikolai, for implementing this. Also, we have Artyom Fetishev made a great thing about IndexedDB optimizations, and he's currently working on very cool feature for IndexedDB, which I hope will work out eventually. But anyway, so from 1.12, VictoriaMetrics got this option to disable per day index. Per day index is a specific type index that was added to VictoriaMetrics in order to deal with high churn rate scenarios where metrics are appearing and disappearing multiple times a day. And this per day index helps to optimize query speed on reading the data, because instead of reading the huge global index which contains all this constantly churning time series, we can read just a couple of days, which would contain like much less information, and this speed ups the query speed. But for some cases, like for IoT, for example, it could be that there is no churn rate at all. For example, you run in a static list of hardware with predefined components, with predefined addresses, and you need to collect that with, I don't know, with 10 millisecond resolution, and there is no churn at all. It could be like a big volume of the data, high cardinality, but no churn at all. And this per day index will be like not actually improving situation. It will be making it worse if there is no churn rate. So for such cases, you can now disable this per day index. And by visiting these links, index tuning for low churn rate, you can see much more information on how exactly it works and scenarios where you can enable it or no. In general, according to the benchmarks, it can speed up like ingestion and query read time like about twice if you don't have this high churn rate situation. Okay. In 1.12, we also got merged the long-standing pull request by Andrei Chuvatyuk for stream aggregation. So for those who use stream aggregation, you probably could face the inconsistency in calculations for histograms. And in stream aggregation, it's happening because histograms are not expressed as a one-time series. Histograms, Prometheus histograms, they're expressed as a set of time series. And since aggregation, stream aggregation, it has the exact time when aggregation stops to do the flush, to aggregate the collected data. It could happen that part of the time series were already recorded by the aggregation, and another part of time series belonging to the same histogram will arrive like 1 millisecond later. And exactly this goes to these discrepancies that usually revealed itself on high load or when data flow is a bit unstable. But yeah, in 1.12, there is an option which improves situation on calculation of this stuff. It makes it much more precise. And this feature called aggregation windows. Aggregation windows actually run instead of one rolling window for collecting, for aggregating data, it runs multiple windows. And on ingestion time, it decides to which window this sample will go. And it will, it has the previous state, it has next state, and it can like understand to which state this exact sample belongs, and it reduces the probability of such a delay discrepancy for histogram calculation. This comes with an extra cost. Of course, having 2 aggregation windows instead of 1 means using more memory during stream aggregation. This is why this is optional thing. Like you need to enable it, and you can enable it for specific aggregation. So yeah, you can read more about how this works and how to enable this by visiting stream aggregation aggregated windows chapter. And thanks, Andriy Chubatyuk, for implementing this. Okay, what's next? In 1.13, VM alert had update on eval offset param. Eval offset param is basically telling VM alert on which fraction of the time unit it needs to execute the rule, group with rules. And after Haley did update to this param, it is now possible to chain execution groups. If you're for a long time with VictoriaMetrics, you know that VM alert does not support the chaining of the rules because it doesn't have access to recently written data. It's just external ruler, and it reads data from VictoriaMetrics data source or from data source and pushes data to the data source. So in the moment when rule was evaluated, its results are not immediately queryable. This is why chaining of the rules is not always working precisely. Like if you chain in rules, it's better to, it can be not reliable because you will likely be querying the previous result instead of the current result. But now you can use this eval offset to build the chaining between set of groups by specifying when this group needs to be executed. For example, group A can be executed on the beginning of the minute, and group B could be executed like 30 seconds after group A. And this will ensure that results of the group A were executed and persisted and became queryable from the data source. So the group B will always get the recently written data. And of course, you can extend those intervals as you wish. And thanks, Haley, for implementing this. And you can also read about chaining groups on VM alert documentation in the section chaining groups. Okay, in 1.13, we also got support for a new feature which called time series metric names usage tracker. It's a cool feature which allows to understand if the metrics that you store are actually queried at all. And we hope that with this API, you will be able to find those metrics that no one ever queried, but you still continue storing it. You can read about how this works on this link on docs.victoriametrics.com. It's called track ingested metric usage, but I will briefly explain how this works. So this feature is open source. It's available on VM single and in cluster on VM storages. It needs to be enabled by passing the specific command line flag. And when you pass it, VM storage or VM single, they start to maintain cache called metric names stats cache. And this cache is populated by new entries on ingestion. So when we ingest metric foo or metric bar, it consults this cache, and if there is no such entry, it creates it. And it registers in this cache only metric names, not all the time series, only metric names. Why? Because metric names are usually very limited in the cardinality. it's usually some specific labels in the time series making them high cardinality data, but metric names are usually pretty limited. For example, our playground, play.victoriametrics.com, which collects data from many different environments, from VictoriaLogs, from VictoriaMetrics, from Kubernetes, from Docker logs, a lot of environments that we monitor, it only has 6,000 metric names in total. And it makes it pretty easy to maintain this cache because it will not occupy a lot of data. And it's pretty lightweight, like it doesn't have the resource impaction, almost doesn't have it. Like you will not notice any difference if you enable it on CPU or on memory usage, very likely. So when we ingest these metric names, they get into this cache. And when we read metrics from the storage, we also update this cache. So for example, we requesting data, requesting metric name foo, which is bigger than 0. And if you did this, then VM storage will update this cache and will tell like, hey, actually this metric name was requested at least one time, and when it was requested, like at the current moment of time, for example. And bar, in this case, metric bar, it's still unqueried, and like this is how it will work. Like checking these numbers will help you to understand that metric foo was actually queried by someone and metric bar wasn't. So probably you don't even need to ingest it. Maybe you can drop it via relabeling rules or with whatever you would prefer to do. And for example, this is the execution on our playground on play.victoriametrics.com. It's actually publicly available. Everyone can try to execute this command and see how this API works. And here I'm just fetching the, everything that is matching pattern cube stateful sets status. And we see that we have 3 metrics in return, 3 metric names. 2 of them are like were never queried. And one of these metric names was queried like 100,000 times. So these metrics we use, this metric we use, we need to keep it because maybe there is an alerting rule which constantly checks that. But the first 2 metrics for replicas available were never queried. So maybe we don't need them. Instead of analyzing like alerting rules and dashboard expressions, you can just check whether those metrics were ever requested from the VictoriaMetrics. And we still continue on improving this feature. In our plans, it's to integrate it with Cardinality Explorer. So when you check like your top 10 or top 50, the most high cardinal metric name, you can also check if they're actually used or no. And probably we will also have a separate VMUI page just to browse this tracker. Instead of checking the bare JSON, we will make a user interface for this. And when I was testing this feature, I find out that there are a bunch of metrics that VictoriaMetrics itself exposes, and they're very useful, but we actually don't use them. So after testing this feature, I added a bunch of new panels to the dashboards, which helps us to measure like the duplication rate, number of snapshots, number of partial requests. So you can also update the Grafana dashboards to get these new panels and new alerting rules, etc. Okay, what else? There were also a lot of operator updates, but I was asked just to highlight 2 of them. The first one is to introduce a new field, disable auto mount service account. This change is needed for environments with high security requirements. And it adds this new field which you can enable to disable these service accounts. And another one is the bug fix, but a pretty important bug fix, which helps you to not miss the samples when you scale the VM agent cluster, scaling the number of shards. So if you're using VM agent clusters, it's recommended to get your operator updated with to include this bug fix. And thanks Nikolai and Andriy and Haley for working on the operator. We also got a bunch of updates on VM UI. There are many of them, but I will highlight a few. So you all know that we have this in VMUI, when you execute a query in VMUI or row query, there is a button to export it. And when we troubleshoot some user cases, when like user says something doesn't work on this query, we ask to export this query. And now with exporting this query, exporting query results, you can add a full report explaining what is happening, and it supports Markdown, and it will be looking pretty good. And it works for both for instance range queries, for row queries, and everyone who has access to VMUI can like import your report and see exactly what's happening with your request, as in the same way as you see it. Instead of sharing screenshot, you can actually share a snapshot. Okay. Another very cool feature, which will be included in this Monday release, is hiding common labels. Actually, it is available already in the previous releases, but in this release, it will we put it like closer to the legend, so it's easier to use. Like you can just press toggle instead of going to the legend settings. So what this feature does, it actually removes the common labels from the legend. This is very useful when you query a metric and there are like hundreds of the time series, but most of the labels among those time series are identical. And when you need to find just those time series that are different, you always see in those duplicating metrics. So now you can just press on this toggle and it will take them away and will put them in the top of this panel. It will just tell you, hey, across all these metrics that you plotted, these three labels, in our case, it's flag name, instance, and job, they're the same for all the time series below. And it helps very much to navigate through the legend. And also you can switch to the table view to see it a bit formatted a bit differently, which is also sometimes much easier to browse than the previous type of the legend. Yeah, so we appreciate your feedback. If you if community has like more ideas how to make VMUI better, just create a ticket on the GitHub and we will be happy, because these changes were like a part of the feedbacks that we received from community, from VictoriaMetrics users, and thanks for that. Yeah, starting from the previous release, we started to publish VictoriaMetrics images on Quay. That's mostly a response on the Docker Hub limitations on image pools. So now you can also fetch VictoriaMetrics images from Quay, which doesn't have these limitations by now. but yeah, and as you see about the usage logs, someone is already using Quay, so we have about 800 pulls per day. Yeah, so and we replicate all the images there, so you can find every component there. And also, which we didn't talk about on previous meetup, both VictoriaMetrics data sources for Grafana, for metrics and for logs, are now published officially and are signed. That means that they're available in Grafana Marketplace and can be installed just with few clicks in the Grafana interface without need to run custom scripts or to allow unsigned plugins or all the other instructions that we gave. Now, all this is available just through the Grafana interface, and I hope you enjoy using these plugins. And if you see any issues with them, just raise a ticket in corresponding GitHub repo, and we'll try to address this as soon as possible. Okay, yes, so that's me, and that's all updates in Q1, and I have high expectations for Q2 as well. And thanks, everyone, for listening.
Hi, Roman. Thank you so much. We have not so many questions. First one was about clustering version of VictoriaLogs, but I believe Alex will address it later. And unfortunately, I cannot present comments like we usually do because of the glitch of system where we do this presentation. But the question from Aliaksandr, when do you expect having the new index DB couplet with samples? So some context, we started R&D task in December, And the idea is to duplicate global index and collocate index data with data blocks. And this means that you will have complete entity, movable entity, and you can do something with that, for example.
Yeah, I can cover this.
Okay, please go.
Yeah, so coupling index with data samples is currently on progress, and it's work that Artem Fetishev is working on. I don't have a strict timeline on that, and I don't want it to be made in rush because it's a pretty critical change. It requires a lot of changes in the VictoriaMetrics source code itself. And in the same time, we need to keep the backward compatibility with the previous type of the index. So users don't need to migrate when switching to this. I can't provide the fixed ETA. I'm expecting like a few months to get something that we can work on, start testing it, etc. But yeah, you can ask those questions on the GitHub. We have a separate ticket for that. I will find the ticket and we'll post somewhere in YouTube where the progress can be tracked. And Artem Fetishev, he's even maintaining a huge Google Docs with like all the steps he is making. So tracking his progress is pretty easy, and also like you can communicate to every VictoriaMetrics member on GitHub or in Slack. You can just ask questions there as well. And I hope Artem Fetishev will address them too. But yeah, I have also two very high expectations for this feature to be alive, because it's not only aims to reduce disk space usage in future, but it also opens a possibility to move data parts between VM storages to do the resharding of the data and upload this data to elsewhere, to S3, for example. Yeah.
And one more question. Creating release 2.0 is not easy, but let me rephrase it. Are we going to release 2.0 with these fixes, or are we going to continue 1 something and do everything backward compatible?
It will be backward compatible.
Thank you.
Actually, it will be forward compatible.
Yeah.
So you don't need to change your data. It will work in all good, but you won't be able to switch to minor version, to version before. Yeah, sorry for taking too much time.
Roman, are you going to introduce Natan, or should I do that?
Yeah, I thought you will introduce. Yes. Hello, Nathan, and welcome to our meetup. We're doing them every quarter, and I hope everyone will enjoy your story because I was very interested in this in it before this talk. So yeah, let's go.
Thank you so much. So it's great to be here. Yeah, go ahead, Artem.
Yeah, just could you please tell a few words about yourself, about your company, and after that present.
Yeah, so I'm Natan, and I'm the CEO of Robusta, and we do an AI agent on top of observability systems. And today I'm going to show you a little teaser of what it looks like if you add large language models to VictoriaMetrics. And I guess I want to start from one of the use cases for this. So let me just bring that up. So part of the motivation for this is that like we work a lot with platform teams, and it turns out that when you have good observability systems, there still is a huge gap between the ability of like the best people who are the most technical and the most familiar with infrastructure and observability in the organization to use it, to everyone else in the organization who often doesn't know how to use it. So as an example, like many DevOps teams will know always where to go and where to pull metrics and where to investigate and to look at the logs. But then development teams it will often not go and do that on their own. They're just relying on DevOps teams or platform teams to do that. So a big goal of really the question that we were asking ourselves is, can we use AI to make observability data more available to the masses? So can we use AI so that like all the developers in the world will really be more involved in infrastructure and metrics and Kubernetes, at least to the degree they should be, and that they can troubleshoot stuff more independently on their own without often reaching out to someone on the DevOps team and asking them to assist or asking them to help troubleshoot a problem. So that was a big part of the motivation for this. So here I just have an example screenshot of me, a developer, asking someone else in my organization, DevOps engineer, saying, okay, please like help me troubleshoot this. There's something crashing. Can you help me? And of course, all the observability data is there to do so in a system like VictoriaMetrics. So I really like, do I even have to ask someone? I might not know where to go and look. I might not know how to write ParmQL, but how can we make that data more available? So that's where we started. And then we put together a Slack bot and some other interfaces for this so that you can ask a question like that and it'll go off and it'll query all the observability data automatically and then give the end user an answer so that they can solve more problems on their own without like waiting for someone else who's more knowledgeable to assist. So today what I'm going to be speaking about and showing you is the open source aspect of that open source project called Holmes GPT. And I guess I'd like to first start and talk a little bit about the architecture on this. And so the general flow is we have here on the left-hand side alerts that are coming in or those questions from developers. So you can have alerts from VictoriaMetrics, or you can have plain text questions from developers that are coming in over Slack, and you have something that you want to go and investigate. So you have some question, why is this alert firing, or what is going on and why is my application not working? You have some question or some alert that you want to investigate that is coming in human language or as like a blob of JSON for the alert. And then what we do is we feed that into the AI agent, Holmes GPT, and that is connected to the observability data. So essentially what we've done is we've taken a large language model and using what's known as tool calling or function calling, we've given that the ability to go off and query different data. So you get a question, you don't answer the question because, I mean, how could you would just hallucinate, right? You don't answer the question. Instead, you go off, you query observability data, you look at the data. If the data has the information you need to answer, you answer. If not, then you do more queries. And then finally, you give an answer to the user. And of course, this sits on top of almost any large language model. And you can feed in runbooks and you can feed in other information as well to make those investigations more accurate. So I'm just going to share my screen and show a quick demo of this. And I'm going to demo this with open source in the command line, but this is available in a few other interfaces as well. Also in the open source, we have some different ways that you can access this. So let me share my screen. Okay, perfect. And this is the open source. And there's some instructions down here on how to install that. I'm just going to run that locally. And let's go over here to the terminal. So I'm running here Holmes Investigate Alert Manager. And I've given it in advance, I've configured the URL here for VM Alert Manager. And I'm port forwarding that. So I'm port forwarding from localhost to VM Alert Manager. And then this is just going to pull alerts from Alert Manager. And I've told it start by investigating QPod not ready alerts. So like imagine there's an alert firing in my environment. Maybe a developer comes to me, if I'm on the DevOps team, they say, okay, why is this alert firing? And I want to really get them to solve that problem more on their own. So, okay, we're pulling alerts here. And it turns out this QPod not ready is actually firing on one of the node exporters from VictoriaMetrics running in my cluster. Okay, and we're done with the analysis. What's interesting over here is here I have the analysis of this alert, right? So it's gone. Sorry, let me show you first. It's gone and it's done a few things before giving me the result. So first, it saw that this alert has a runbook. So it went and it fetched the runbook from the internet and it read that runbook so it knows how to investigate. Then it looked at the metadata on the alert and it saw that this alert is about this specific pod. So it ran kubectl describe on that. And then it went off and tried to fetch logs as well. So now I get an explanation. Okay, that's just an explanation of the alert. Here are the key findings. So the pod is impending. It's controlled by this daemon set. And it's failed because there are two problems here. One, I have, there are no free ports for the requested pod ports. And then there are two nodes that also didn't satisfy the node affinity requirements. And this is correct, of course. Now, one of the interesting things is I actually like the investigation to go a little bit further, right? I like if as a human, I'm thinking, well, okay, if there are no free ports available, like, well, why don't you check who is using that port? The information I'd like to see is who's actually taking up that port already running in my cluster. So I've actually gone off and like I opened up the runbook, and then I opened a pull request on this runbook, like saying if something can't be scheduled due to no port conflict, then check who else is binding the port with this. And as soon as that PR is merged, then every time I run an investigation like this with that community knowledge, it'll actually now go off and follow those instructions from the runbooks. So you're seeing how I'm actually getting a pretty good answer up front. But if I improve the runbooks, then it will use the runbooks, and then I can get an even better answer in the future. And then if I look down at other alerts that are firing, here's a different example. So also coupon not ready, but in this case, the customer relations app is in non-ready state, and this is due to an image pull back off. So you can see how like the same alert name even could be firing for many different reasons. Could be an application issue, could be firing, again, due to more of an infrastructure issue or misconfiguration in my cluster. And whatever the response, then what we're doing with the large language models, essentially we're taking the alert, we're using that to determine what data should we gather. We're gathering that data, and then we're summarizing that in a human readable format to tell you how to fix that alert and fast. So that is the main demo. And then I think I actually might touch on one more thing here that is interesting in the slides. But before I do that, I don't know if there are any questions that came in while I was talking.
Let me add myself to the stage. No questions so far. Only one comment. That's awesome that you find the rhyme book first, and that's sometimes not a starting point of the issue investigation.
Yeah, because the problem is everyone writes runbooks, but runbooks are write only, and no one actually reads them during an incident. Like there are so many. That runbook is part of is linked from Prometheus stack and from VictoriaMetrics, and it's in every single alert where coupon like you get coupon not ready. But I can guarantee you, like 99.9% of the time, no one reads it, but the AI reads it. So we're seeing an interesting pattern where humans write runbooks and then AI actually reads them and uses them to investigate. So I don't know, the future is weird. We're in the middle of this kind of paradigm shift also in how some of this works.
Yeah, I also have a question. And is it my understanding correct that it can like learn in the real time from these runbooks?
Yeah, so we're pulling the runbook live. What we're not doing yet, but which is actually interesting, is to update the runbook at the end. So then you learn from the next time. So we're looking at like generating a post-mortem and then making the post-mortems also available during the investigation. So imagine you have like Ops Genie, or you have like Jira, and then you have summaries of how you resolved the same issue in the past. And you could like do a search for those prior to investigating, or search on Slack for the alert name, and then like incorporate those learnings into the investigation.
Mm-hmm. And if I like put a specific set of commands, like what to execute, I don't know, to help the engineer to run these commands so he doesn't stress out, will it also like print those commands or help me to type something in the terminal to?
Yeah, so we have a plugin system for how it can run different commands. So it has to have the commands pre-approved. So like we can only can't run any command because like for safety reasons, you want the large language model to be able to do that. But it can run like any of our plugins, and then you can add your own plugins. And now the really interesting thing is there's a protocol called MCP, or Model Context Protocol. And we're giving it the ability to run to connect to any MCP server. So the reason this is so cool is because like in a lot of big enterprises, you have like ServiceNow where you have plan change tickets, for example. And then there's an MCP server for ServiceNow. It's like, now imagine you have an incident and like you're really scratching your head and like you have no idea why suddenly like network traffic is dropping. And then Holmes goes off and uses the MCP server for ServiceNow, and it looks at the change tickets and it finds out that someone switched like a router that day. So like it's really cool because with MCP, you can connect this to like almost an infinite number of external sources and have it tap those during the investigation. But it won't be able to run any command. It'll only be able to like use the pre-approved MCP servers.
I see. Thanks.
Thank you. We have one related question from one of the viewers. Is it possible to use a tool like Playbook to automate tasks, such as restarting a pod or silence an alert?
So yeah, I mean, we started as a company actually before AI. We started from Runbook Automation with an open source project called Robusta, with Runbook Automation specifically for Kubernetes. And then along came AI, and we actually realized that like one of the downsides of traditional runbooks is that like people have to invest a lot of time upfront writing them, which then makes the ROI smaller. So we have the ability to do the runbooks, but then what we're looking at now is, and for deterministic runbooks, you don't need AI if you think about it, right? Because for deterministic runbooks, you can use AI to generate the runbooks. But then you don't want, so we're at an interesting place where you have runbooks that like you could use AI to generate, but they're deterministic. So like you're not making a decision with the model on what to do. And that's fine because like you predetermine them, they're deterministic. So you can give really high permissions for what you do in those runbooks. And then there's what happens at runtime. So like something completely unexpected comes along and you want to do remediation, like starting a pod. You probably don't want to let the large language model do that without asking you. But one of the things that we're looking at is like now human in the loop patterns. So like the AI can say, or HolmesGPT can say, I want to restart this pod. Like, do you give me permission to do so? And then you click yes, and that happens, but it's out of band. So the LLM can't call that command directly.
Oh, that's really nice. And actually, yeah, please go ahead.
No, under the hood, the way all this works and the way tool calling works is the protocol is the large language model is generating JSON and then sending that JSON back to the client, like Holmes. And then Holmes is taking that JSON to understand what data should I query from VictoriaMetrics or what data should I query from other places. So the large language model is actually never executing any of these. There's a protocol where it's passing JSON back to the client and then telling the client, like, can you do this for me? And then if the client approves, it does it.
Really nice.
Now, before the call, we were talking a little bit about generating PromQL, but I don't know. I think we're over on time.
I don't know. Like if it takes like 3 minutes, we can briefly go through this. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and Artem, were you going to say something as well?
No, nothing.
Okay, so could you add back my slides for a second? So one thing that we're looking at is also, this isn't a live demo, but like one of the next things up for us that we're looking at is using large language models to generate PromQL automatically. And like, here's an example. So show me a graph of no disk usage, and it wrote this query. But what's really, really interesting is actually how it wrote this query. And that's where it gets really good. Because like if you went to like ChatGPT and I said, like, give me PromQL to write a graph of no disk usage, it would probably fail on the first attempt. And I know that would probably fail because we fed this into, really when we generated this graph, we fed it into OpenAI first and it failed on the first attempt, but still got you the graph. And I'm going to explain that now. The problem is when you ask a question like when you ask a large language model like ChatGPT, like give me a graph of no disk usage, it doesn't know what metrics are available in your environment. It was trained on the internet, so it can like make some assumptions, but it may be very wrong about your environment or about like the labels on those metrics in your environment. So the way this actually works under the hood is I'm going to show you a trace of what the large language model actually did over here. So first it listed available Prometheus metrics with a search on node file system usage. And you can see it got back no results. That doesn't exist. It's like, had you fed this into ChatGPT, it would have stopped there and it would have written you a query with node file system usage, which doesn't exist. But the large language model here like saw, oh, this doesn't exist. So essentially said to the client, like, okay, please do another search for me. Find me, I'm going to drop off the usage at the end. Find me all metrics that contain node file system, right? And then it went off and it found the metrics. Then it fetched the current time. And then it actually went off and wrote the PromQL query. So this is like a really what people call an agentic pattern. And it's really cool because it's like trying things out and then it sees it fails and then it like sees the error message, it fixes it, right? And it's really similar to how a human works. Like if I'm doing like honestly, as how I work as a human, right? If I wanted to like create that graph or write that PromQL myself, I would like probably Google, I take the name of the metric, I like plop that into Grafana, and then I would hope it works, but it didn't work, right? So because I see an empty thing. So then I would like backspace a little bit and I would like do a search on node file system, right? Or node. And then I would get these metrics and I would try them out. So what it's doing here is actually really similar to what a human does. And it really shows the power of this approach of how you get so much more accurate results when you give the AI access to try things, see if they work, and then to try other things if it didn't, and to have that feedback loop. And when you feed in the live data and not just the data it was trained on the internet. So this is kind of the direction we're heading in. And I don't know, it excites us. The first time we saw it working, we like took a second take, and then we looked at the data and we're like, oh wait, it got it wrong, but then it fixed it, which was really cool to see. So that's it from me.
Okay, I have questions immediately.
Go ahead.
How do you train on writing correct PromQL queries? I know a lot of engineers can't do that. And it's not that much information on the internet that you can gather tons of examples with PromQL to train it. So the question where you get the source of the right queries.
So I'm going to give you the dirty secret. We don't train. Okay. And so that's the big paradigm shift here, right? Like, it is already trained on the internet, so it has a good enough base understanding of what PromQL looks like. But the gap it's missing is what PromQL what metrics are from VictoriaMetrics are available in my environment. So whereas training is changing the underlying base model, you could say this is training, but technically it's not training or fine tuning. Technically, what we're doing is we're giving the LLM a protocol where it can say to us, in JSON, please show me all available metrics, and then we feed it back in. So we're essentially calling the LLM once to say tell me what data to gather, and then it says back to us go fetch me these PromQL metrics, do this query to VictoriaMetrics. We do that, we feed the result in, and then it generates the query. And if that didn't work on the first time, it'll do several iterations of that. So the underlying model is completely untrained, but we've given the model the ability to have a conversation back and forth with VictoriaMetrics.
Okay, that's cool. Does it support metric scale in the same way?
I haven't tried it. So this is a case where this is a case where I would ask what's the cutoff on the training data on the internet, because then I would need a base model that was trained. When was MetricsQL released?
I don't know, 3 years, 4 years ago.
So I would be fine. So that would be fine then, because I would need, if I asked it to do this on something that was released after the base model was trained, then it wouldn't work. But as long as as long as MetricsQL was on the internet when the base model was trained, then this would work.
Okay, thank you. So I see there is a comment. Yeah, it's a comment from Mark Sherwood, and I probably don't understand it completely. Is that similar to reinforcement training? Asks Mark.
So not exactly. You could there are certainly parallels, but reinforcement training is really what you do at training time, and this is at inference time. So this goes back to your question on training. When people say do you train or not, then there's a very specific technical meaning for that, which is a model like ChatGPT it has a training phase that costs tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. And now with DeepSeek, it's less, but that is traditionally hundreds of millions of dollars, where you run the model over the whole internet. And then for O3 stuff, you're doing reinforcement learning, or you're doing preference optimization, you're doing all these other methods. And then the model is baked and ready to go. And then you ask it questions at real time. So reinforcement learning is something you would do at training time traditionally, whereas what we're doing here is all at runtime or at inference time after the model has already been baked. So we're taking an off-the-shelf model. We're not modifying the model one bit. We're just modifying the data that gets fed in and out, so it doesn't modify the underlying model. And so this isn't reinforcement learning, but I guess there are some parallels in how we're approaching it. And then the last thing I'll just say on this is the advantage of not training your own model in the traditional sense is that Claude 3.7 came out and it is phenomenal. Like, it is an incredible model. Like, the results we see on that are fantastic. I did a demo here on GPT-4o, but like if it was Claude 3.7, I have no doubt that it would on its own like go and look at which like what pod is already binding to that port in the example earlier. So the advantage of not training your own model is that whenever a new model comes out, then you can just switch on to the latest model. So the extra performance that you get from training your own model turns out to be smaller than the extra performance you get by just switching models really fast to whatever is latest and greatest.
Okay, that sounds great. And also you can compare different responses from different models. I mean, online models from Claude and ChatGPT. Yeah, that sounds super interesting and deserves like a separate meetup, separate session for this.
Yeah, and, on the back end, we have a whole framework on on what we call evals and like known examples of PromQL and the queries and testing and evaluating it. But like we can't do it justice. Anyway, thank you so much though for having me.
Yeah, thanks for presentation, and yeah, have a nice time. I know that you need to quit early, so yeah, thanks again for participating with us in this meetup. The next, the next one is Jose, right? Updates of VictoriaMetrics Cloud.
Let me add Jose. Jose, hello.
Hey, hello. Thank you.
Let me remove Roman and myself and add your presentation to VictoriaMetrics Cloud.
Okay, here we are. Thank you very much, Artem, and thank you, Roman. It's been a great update on the open source side of things, and I really love the unused metrics tracker feature. I will talk a bit about that later today in our plans. And also thank you very much, Natan. I think this is I love the ecosystem, right? Like we see more uses as we advance, and how to put things together. It can be overwhelming. So this has been very informative, and I've been always thinking myself like, hey, how does these things work, right? And it's been very useful. So thank you for coming and sharing this awesome use case. So now I'm here to talk about our updates in VictoriaMetrics Cloud, what our team has been doing this last quarter. It's crazy how fast the time flies. It's been already a quarter. Just in case you haven't tried, there is a trial, so feel free to go there. We give you a couple of $100 in credits to spin up a VictoriaMetrics cloud instance and play with that, and also provide feedback. So I would love that. And you can also check the docs. So please feel free to do so. So which updates do we have here? Our team's been working a lot, and actually, as I said, I've been here for not for so long, and I'm still impressed on everything that this team is doing. So kudos to the team. Thank you very much, guys. So let's go through all of them, and later we will talk about the roadmap as well. So first thing, organizations. This is something that those who already know VictoriaMetrics Cloud, you know it existed as part of the system, but now we are making this evident to the users and improving interaction and providing more functionalities to it. So now, as you will see, as you have seen, the UI has been reworked. Now organization features are together. So now you can also invite or leave organizations in case you want to do that. And now the billing and user management experience is unified, and you can check the audit logs for your organization and API key management for those, right? So now everything should be, we've been putting some love into this, so we hope you like it. Feel free to provide feedback as usual, and we will hear to that and react. Apart from that, not everything is UI, as you know, right? normally we also like to, once we have trained ourselves, we want to put it into our runbooks or into our code or GitOps, and we want to use and deploy or change or our deployments. So we have expanded, and you can check the docs and on which functionality we have. So now you can query and check what's the supported cloud providers, the regions, instance types, list deployments, and so forth. So hopefully this will help you, and of course we will be listening and improving, adding more functionality with time as we grow. Something that I really wanted to show here, this is not like it's new, it's been here, but with this rework of the UI, we have also been thinking or taking advantage that we are changing things to make more evident what's the explore section. So before you needed to go into your deployment, check that deployment, and then somewhere there look at some data and functionalities. Now we are making this very obvious and guiding you through. This, for those of you who know the VM UI, then this is a no-brainer, but maybe you didn't know about this. So what can you do in the explore section, right? It's not only about, hey, I send my data to the cloud and then I will be querying with some other tool. You can, inside VictoriaMetrics Cloud, you can query your own metrics. You can, via the VM UI, you can visualize your own data, combine several queries to check how it looks like. Just for example, hey, I have this thing running in AWS somewhere there. I want to check, like, is this working? I'm sending my data. Is it there or not? You can do it directly without needing to plug in anything else. We also help, as Roman was mentioning before, we also help to predefine your queries, and they will help normally to readability. Sometimes it can be very messy to read those queries and auto-completing or trace your queries and so forth. We also want to help you to know your data. So it's not only, like, hey, send data, the more the better for us, right? No, it's not about that. It's also helping you to check your Prometheus metrics by job and instance, also inspecting the data cardinality and discovering, hey, which is more used, which are the heaviest queries, so you can improve, right, and over time and scale in a good way. Also, as you know, you can. We like to help with debugging, how you do through labeling, even showing and providing some examples so you can learn how to use metrics QL. So maybe we can train this use case that Natan was showing before. Maybe this data will be helpful, right? So check the explore page if you haven't. It's there, and you can explore by deployment, and you can explore your data. So that's it for so we had organizations, new API endpoints, and this explore page. Now let's move to integrations. This is something I am very happy about the result. As you know, VictoriaMetrics a long time ago implemented OpenTelemetry natively. We are providing here evidence to users how to do it. So we are adding a new integration as a first-class citizen to VictoriaMetrics Cloud. And how it works, right? We provide a streamlined example, so it will be released to you for every integration. It works like that. You just need an endpoint and a better token, and that's it. That's how it works. Nothing super complicated. So here we help you with some snippets, with some examples. Depending, doesn't matter if you use the Helm chart or the operator. We will help you with that to the deployment of your choice. And yeah, you can easily start observing your Kubernetes cluster or your workloads. It doesn't matter. You just need to provide the better token out extension, and as I said, we will help you with that. So even if it's for single or for cluster, you just configure it, and we give you the snippet. You just need to copy and paste, and there you go. So hopefully this will help you. Another thing that we are working pretty quick, we are changing the docs in many ways. So this is ongoing work, but I wanted to share it. We are adding new sections for get started, account management, FAQs, and we will be continuing in the following weeks. And just an update, the team is working on like new documentation design, and it looks great. I can tell you. So kudos to the work, and you will be seeing this great improvement very soon. Other improvements, just to mention, we want to make sure that everything goes nicely, as you know, right? As you know, VictoriaMetrics Cloud always does backups and also helps to restore and everything. In this line, sometimes when just imagine, right, you have an issue with AWS payments or something, we want to make that consistent and robust. So we have also implemented more. We have implemented improvements there. So, for example, if there is this kind of issues while charging, then we don't just delete the deployment. We will make a backup. We will notify you. You will, after some days, we will stop the deployment, but you will not lose your data. So we have been working on this to make this experience better and enjoyable. And also, we are adding IPv6 support for everything. So, of course, the world is running out of IPs, and people want to use IPv6, and that's normal. So now VictoriaMetrics Cloud can do it as well. And also notifications enhancements, as I said, in the same line that I was saying. We want to improve our communication with you because that's very important to us, and we are working there. So you will be seeing improvements there. So that's it for what the team has been doing. Again, thank you, folks, because it's been amazing. I'm still amazed on the work of this team. And what's next? And very soon I will be handing it over to Aliaksandr. VictoriaLogs, we will start now. We have started to design and so forth, but we will start very soon with the implementation of VictoriaLogs in VictoriaMetrics Cloud, adding that available for everyone. So in one quarter or so, it will be. We hope it will be there. We will keep you posted, of course. And as Roman was mentioning, this unused metrics feature, I think it's great. Everybody, even it's more important when you are in cloud, right? You really want to only send the data that is useful to you. So we want to help with that. And we will be working on that. Also, we see a lot of VPC requests. Many of you are asking us, hey, can I add VictoriaMetrics Cloud as a VPC endpoint? And then I'm done with it in AWS. Yes, you can do it ad hoc today, but we want to make it automated, like you can just enable it and live with that. So we will be working on that. And of course, adding more integration. It's important, as I was saying at the very beginning, this ecosystem is huge. It's very important to help you integrating all the tools you need. So that's what next. And again, giving here the links in case you want to give it a try or check the docs. This is the information. So thank you.
Thank you, Jose. We have one great question. I personally like it. Are there any other resources that help you get operational? Let's assume you're not collecting any metrics and it's a clean infrastructure.
So if I understand correctly, we are discussing about, okay, hey, I have a Kubernetes cluster or a VM or something, and how do I get started, right? Well, there are many resources in the documentation. For example, just imagine if you have a Kubernetes, then the Kubernetes stack tutorial is there. Of course, in the integration page, there is also the integration with Kubernetes, so that will also help you to enable these metrics and start sending them, right? So that should be easy. Of course, it depends on the environment you are using, but if you don't know about your environment, please let us know, and then we can work together. Right? What do you think, Artem?
Like, I just wanted to mention this Kubernetes stack, and that we have guides for open source and for the cloud, and that's how we think you should operate Kubernetes, and it's like more like one button solution, and among all Helm chart is the most popular.
Totally, yeah.
Oh yeah, and I see just comment in our YouTube channel. Someone recommends use Docker examples. Unfortunately, it's not easy to find them, but we have Docker folder in our GitHub repository, and there are a bunch of examples how to run VictoriaMetrics and VictoriaLogs, single cluster, different collectors, Grafana, predefined dashboard, everything there. That's also should be one comment, and it's also a great start. Thank you, Jose. Let me add Alex to stage, and let me remove you. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Artem. Hello, everyone. And I'll talk you about new features, what's happening new in VictoriaLogs during the first quarter of 2024. Let's start. The first exciting news is that VictoriaLogs has been added to popular benchmarks such as ClickBench and JSONBench, this third-party benchmarks, and I'll talk about this benchmark on the next slides. The ClickBench benchmark is a benchmark from ClickHouse database, this analytical database, and they published this ClickBench benchmark many years ago for comparing the performance of different analytical databases at first, and after that, different people started adding different databases to this benchmark, and now it contains probably 30 or 40 different databases in this benchmark. And this benchmark, what is this? It contains of 43 typical analytical queries, which are performed over analytical events, 100 million of such events, and every event contains around 100 fields. This means that the total number of field values across all these events is 100 million multiplied by 100 is 10 billion of individual field values. The total size of this data set is more than 200 gigabytes in JSON format. And I decided that it would be a great idea to just try using VictoriaLogs in this benchmark, despite the fact that VictoriaLogs isn't an analytical database, it's just a database for logs. So I tried using VictoriaLogs there, and it has been appeared that it provided good results in this benchmark. Let's look at these results closer. This screenshot shows you the performance of VictoriaLogs compared to other popular databases, not including ClickHouse, obviously because ClickHouse performs slightly better there. So VictoriaLogs is much faster than TimescaleDB, Elasticsearch, MongoDB, MySQL, and Postgres in this ClickBench. You can see that VictoriaLogs uses less disk space than all these databases by more than 10 times compared to MySQL, for example. And VictoriaLogs also accepts this data at faster speed than all these databases, except of Postgres. But Postgres has not so good compression rate for the data, and this data occupy more space, disk space, and this affects query performance, as you see. You can reproduce these benchmarks on yourself. These benchmarks are open source, and you can just run this shell script inside the directory pointed in this slide, and that's it. You can reproduce it on yourself, and you can run this benchmark scripts at different directories for different databases and compare the performance in this benchmark. But ClickBench uses SQL queries, and VictoriaLogs doesn't support SQL. It supports only LogSQL query language, which is designed for querying typical logs. What to do? How to add? How I added VictoriaLogs into ClickBench? The solution is very simple. It's just convert these SQL queries, 43 SQL queries, from SQL to LogSQL. And it has been appeared that this task is very easy for typical analytical queries. And the results in LogSQL queries has been appeared shorter and easier to understand than the original SQL queries. Let's look at an example. Here is a typical query from this benchmark. It selects mobile phone model and calculates the number of events per each this pair mobile phone and mobile phone model, and calculates the number of distinct users across all these events, and then sorts all these stats in descending order of users, unique users, and returns you top 10 users, top 10 mobile phone and mobile phone models, which have the biggest number of users, unique users there. And let's look at the same query at LogSQL. That's a LogSQL query, and as you can see, the LogSQL query is much shorter than SQL query original. It is easier to read. You just read it line by line and understand what's going on. The first line says that let's select all the events where mobile phone model field is not empty. The next line says that let's calculate stats grouped by mobile phone and mobile phone model fields, and let's calculate the total number of events and the number of unique users. And the next line says that please return me only the first 10 stats, calculated stats, ordered in descending order by the number of users. So you can see that LogSQL is easier than SQL. The next benchmark, where VictoriaLogs have been added, is JSON bench. This benchmark also is from ClickHouse. This benchmark have been appeared a few months ago, and what's the contents of the benchmark? This benchmark contains 5 analytical queries which are performed over 1 billion of JSON documents. These JSON documents contain some events from Blue Sky program. These events are publicly available, and ClickHouse team collects all these events for this benchmark and collected 1 billion of events for this benchmark. The total size of these events is slightly bigger than in the previous benchmark. It's around 450 gigabytes as JSON documents. And VictoriaLogs isn't a JSON database, but I decided to try VictoriaLogs there, and it has been appeared that it provides good results in this benchmark. Let's look at these results. You can see that VictoriaLogs here is on the 3rd place after the ClickHouse, right after the ClickHouse, and its performance is very good. It is faster than Elasticsearch, MongoDB, and Postgres. You can see that the Postgres and MongoDB multiple thousand times slower than VictoriaLogs in this benchmark, despite the fact that MongoDB is a JSON database, and Elasticsearch also is some kind of JSON database. Okay, you can look at see that VictoriaLogs uses less disk space than Elasticsearch, MongoDB, and Postgres. This means that queries over large amounts of logs or events are performed faster at VictoriaLogs than these systems, because VictoriaLogs needs to read less data from disk because it compresses this data better. VictoriaLogs provides other techniques for improving query performance, but that's one of the techniques which is obvious here. You can reproduce this benchmark on yourself. Just run shell script inside the directory on this JSON bench repository, and you also can run this main scripts in other directories for other databases and compare performance for this benchmark there. The next exciting news, which already mentioned by Roman, is that VictoriaLogs plugin for Grafana is generally available. It is signed by Grafana. This means that you can just go to the install this VictoriaLogs plugin directly from Grafana without the need to perform some additional steps, such as running some shell scripts. So I recommend you trying this VictoriaLogs plugin, because it is constantly evolving and it gains new features every week. And if you tried this VictoriaLogs plugin a few months ago and decided to don't use it because of missing features, I recommend you trying it again and see whether it contains the needed features. And if it misses some features you need, then just file feature requests at VictoriaMetrics repository or a repository for VictoriaLogs plugin, and these feature requests will be added later. Let's look at what's new in VictoriaLogs, what has been built in VictoriaLogs during the first quarter of this year. There are various improvements. Let's look at some of them, highlight them. The first improvement is that VictoriaLogs improved startup times for large volumes of logs. Previously, VictoriaLogs was already very fast during startup times compared to other databases and services for logs, but I noticed a very big room for improvements in this case, because previously VictoriaLogs was reading the metadata needed during the startup sequentially per each day partition. And I tried running this data load in parallel across all these per day partitions, and the results were very good. The performance has been improved. The startup time for VictoriaLogs have been improved by 10 times and more in real production cases. This means that you can easily, very fast restart VictoriaLogs if needed, for example, during upgrades or during configuration updates. The next feature which I would like to highlight is support for new syntax for stream filters. Previously, VictoriaLogs supported the syntax from Prometheus and for label selectors. And this syntax is not so easy to use when you want to select some log streams with different labels, different label values. In this case, you had to use this regular expression, and you had to construct this regular expression, and this regular expression isn't easy to construct properly, correctly for average user, especially if some of fields, some of values which you would like to search contain special characters, such as dots, for example, or other characters which have special meaning in a regular expression. This was not easy. So I decided that it would be a great idea to simplify this such filters and added this in and not in filters syntax into stream selectors. And the syntax is much easier to use and much harder to misuse. It's impossible to misuse actually compared to regular expressions. The next feature is which improves usability is an ability to use this comparison less or equal, greater equal expressions at time filter in a natural way. This simplifies writing queries, and you can look an example here. The next feature is the ability to reduce the concurrency of executed query. By default, VictoriaLogs tries executing query on all the available resources or on the available CPU cores in the system in order to reduce the duration of the query execution, improve performance of the query. But sometimes you don't need the performance, you want limiting the number of CPUs used for performing such query. And this feature allows you adding such limit directly in the query with this options syntax. The next feature related to the formatting. The format pipe gains support for different types of encoding and decoding, which are frequently used in practice, such as base 64, URL encoding, hex encoding, and decoding. This example shows that, for example, you have some value with some binary value, which is unreadable in most cases by humans. And it is usually a good idea to encode such value in hex or base 64, for example, in order to easier to read, copy, paste, to deal with this value. And this easier to do right now in VictoriaLogs with this additional format encodings. The next interesting feature is the ability to remove some fields with some prefix fields with some prefix during the data ingestion into VictoriaLogs. the most of VictoriaLogs data ingestion protocols, which are based on HTTP, support different query parameters, which can modify or do some pre-processing of the ingested data. And one of this query parameter is ignore fields. This query parameter could contain comma-separated list of field names, which should be dropped during data ignition. And recently, VictoriaLogs gained support for wildcards in this query arc. You can put wildcard, and in this case, you just drop all the log fields which start with some prefix. Previously, you had to enumerate all these log fields with this prefix. This simplifies this data ingestion. There are various data ingestion improvements for different formats which are supported by VictoriaLogs. The first improvement is support for trace ID and span ID fields in logs ingested via OpenTelemetry protocol. These fields are used in tracing, and support for these fields simplifies correlation between logs and traces. And actually, we already started working on a tracing solution, a proof of concept for tracing solution based on VictoriaLogs, and probably it will be published soon. Let's see. The next improvement is the automatic parsing of plain text JSON at log messages ingested via Loki data ingestion protocol. What does it mean? When you ingest logs via Loki protocol into different systems, into Loki or into VictoriaLogs, the data ingester usually puts high cardinality log fields such as user ID, trace ID, and so on into a JSON string, and this string is ingested as a plain text log message. Why this design has been chosen by Loki team? Because Loki doesn't support high cardinality log fields good. If you try ingesting logs with fields which contain big number of unique values into Loki, then it will explode in memory usage and will not work. That's why they decided to make such workaround. But the issue is that VictoriaLogs has been designed from the beginning to support such log fields, high cardinality log fields. And while it can parse JSON data during queries, JSON data which is put into a log message during queries like Loki does. This is not so performant, and this requires more disk space usage. This requires more CPU time and so on. And the recommended way is to put high cardinality log fields, store them separately into VictoriaLogs as separate fields. In this case, VictoriaLogs performs much better, and it compresses that data better, it performs queries better, and recent releases of VictoriaLogs gains automatic support for this JSON log message parsing at Loki, at logs ingested via Loki protocol, and this improves the overall performance and resource usage, reduces resource usage at VictoriaLogs. You can read more details on this blog post which I wrote recently. The next improvement is support for ZSTD compression across all the data ingestion protocols. By default, all the data ingestion protocols were started as a without any compression, but over time, some data ingestion protocols gained support for snappy or zip compression, because these compression types reduce the amounts of data needed to transfer over network, and this reduces costs when the network bandwidth is paid. And recently, the most of popular data ingestion protocols gain support for ZSTD, and because ZSTD is more efficient than Snappy and Xzip, and that's why we added this ZSTD compression support at VictoriaLogs. So now VictoriaLogs can accept logs with compressed with ZSTD across all the protocols. And of course, there were various bug fixes reported by our users in different protocols supported by VictoriaLogs. Let's look at LogScale. What's new at LogScale? The first important feature is the ability to find logs which contain identical values at different log fields. This feature is implemented with this EQ field filter. There are also complementary filters for less than and less or equal fields. Also, there is filter for searching for logs which contain the given words phrases, at least one of these words or phrases. This contains any filter. Why it has been added? Because it's easier to write than the previous syntax via this or separated logs, phrases, and words. And also this contains any filter support subqueries. You can put another query inside this filter, and this query returns some values which then can be searched in another subset of logs. And this is very powerful, I think. And the complementary filter contains all. It searches for logs which contains all the words or phrases mentioned in the comma separated list. Let's look at pipes in LogScale. The first pipe, which is very exciting, is a histogram pipe. That's not pipe; it's a stats function, which can be used at stats pipe. And this histogram calculates histogram buckets, VictoriaMetrics histogram buckets across the given numeric fields. And later, such histogram buckets can be visualized as heat maps in VictoriaMetrics VictoriaLogs plugin for Grafana and at WebUI, built-in WebUI in VictoriaLogs. We are going to implement these features soon. The next pipe is union, which shows merging multiple query results in a single query response. That's like a union feature from SQL. The next pipe is hash pipe, which calculates hash from the given log field, and later this hash can be used for bucketing query results further. Also, JSON array len pipe has been added to VictoriaLogs, which improves working with JSON messages embedded inside log fields. This JSON array len returns the length of array embedded in any log field. And also there is an unpack words pipe, which extracts all the tokens, word tokens in the given field, and later you can calculate different stats over these log tokens if needed. For example, calculate the frequency, the most frequent used words in your log messages. Probably that's interesting information. There were various performance improvements for analytical queries in VictoriaLogs during the first quarter for such pipes as stats, stop, and unique. There was an improvement for queries over log field, which contains constant value, but this constant value is exceeds 100 or 200 bytes. This means a long constant field. Previously, such constant VictoriaLogs already was very efficient at query time for constant fields, for short constant fields, but not so efficient. Was not so efficient for long constant fields, and now VictoriaLogs is efficient for any for constant fields of any length. For example, if this log field contains some long stack trace, then this can be used for building not tracing but profiling database on top of VictoriaLogs. Probably in the future we will add the ability to store profiles in VictoriaLogs, because profiles such as CPU profile, memory profile, and so on are based. The basic building blocks for such profiles is stack trace with attached information such as different metrics, such as number of memory locations, the size of memory location, or the amounts of CPU used. But the main property of such stack traces is samples is a very large stock trace, and probably this feature will allow improve using VictoriaLogs as a database for profiles. There were different improvements and bug fixes in built-in web UI for VictoriaLogs. For example, the hits bar chart visualization has been improved a lot compared to the previous state. There were different fixes and improvements. I'll show you later. The built-in web UI gained support for autocompletion for field names and field values. You can enable it. By default, it is disabled, because if you try it on very large volumes of logs, then it can not so performant, but you can enable it and try it. Web UI also added support for selecting different fields which are displayed by default instead of message field, because previously VictoriaLogs web UI for VictoriaLogs was showing the log message by default when you search for some logs, and you had to click on this log message in order to see all the log fields attached to this log entry. And now you can select different log fields which are interested to you, and they will be displayed instead of log message in the query results. You can look at these improvements at our VictoriaLogs playground, at this link, and play with these improvements. And here is a screenshot from this playground. You can see that it has been improved a lot compared to the previous state of web UI. What about nearest plans? The first plan is a cluster version of VictoriaLogs. It is ready on, I would say, more than 80%, and we are going to publish the first release of VictoriaLogs cluster in very soon, let's say. And the sneak peek of this VictoriaLogs cluster version is that it will have a similar architecture to VictoriaMetrics. It will contain of 3 different types of types of roles. The role for data ingestion, insert role, select role, and storage role. But the difference between VictoriaMetrics and VictoriaLogs in cluster is that VictoriaLogs will provide you only a single executable, which can execute which can run in different roles. It can run as a single node version of VictoriaLogs. It can run as a storage node for cluster version. It can run as a select node for cluster version, or insert node as a cluster version, depending on query args or not command line flags passed to this executable. Hopefully, this will simplify even further the configuration and management of VictoriaLogs cluster. Let's see. And another important difference between VictoriaLogs cluster and VictoriaMetrics cluster is that cluster components communicate with each other, not with each other, but insert communicates with storage node and select communicates with storage nodes. This communication protocol is HTTP based in VictoriaLogs, and it is TCP based in VictoriaMetrics. And the difference is that TCP based protocols are harder to intercept by proxies and to modify to route by proxies, and HTTP based protocols is easier to authorize, route, modify by proxies such as VMOS. And this will allow building more flexible architectures, configurations for VictoriaLogs clusters. And by the way, as I said before, a single node version of VictoriaLogs is the same as storage node for VictoriaLogs clusters. This means that you can attach any number of single node versions of VictoriaLogs into cluster for data ingestion or for querying, and get instant query view across single node versions of existing single node versions of VictoriaLogs. That's why I recommend you not wait for VictoriaLogs cluster and start using the single node VictoriaLogs. It is fully compatible at the storage level and the API level with storage node of VictoriaLogs cluster. So if you start early, you will get experience with VictoriaLogs, and it will be easier to switch to cluster in the future. And also, you can find some issues, some missing features in VictoriaLogs right now. And if you will start using VictoriaLogs right now instead of waiting for VictoriaLogs cluster, and this will help us fixing these issues, adding these features in a shorter period of time, and you will win in the future. And the next plan after publishing VictoriaLogs is support for storage of logs into H3, and that's it.
Thank you, Alex. Let me also add Roman to stage. We have a couple of questions. You already answered about the cluster. Definitely, that will be a huge milestone for us. And one of the questions in the chat, does VictoriaLogs support a reverse search when query, like when you want to find error word, but you don't know the field name. So find something like asterisk and error. Does VictoriaLogs support that or not?
No. As I understood, this feature is related to searching for some word across all the log fields.
You're exactly right.
Yeah, VictoriaLogs doesn't support such feature. Probably such feature will be added in the future, and I recommend you filing feature requests instead of asking such questions. No, it's okay to ask such questions here, but it is more efficient to file in feature requests and bug reports at VictoriaMetrics repository, and this way this will increase chances that such feature or bug will be fixed sooner.
I believe we have feature requests about this. And thank you. And next question, is it planned to do indexes like in Kibana? Because our multi-tenancy, like account ID, project ID is not compatible with Kibana.
I am not aware how Kibana works with indexes, so I sorry, but probably I cannot answer this question. I have no context.
Okay, from my side, I can tell that most likely not, because our multi-tenancy is based on this project ID and account ID. And also you can provide extra label, extra filter to slice and dice and protect your data set. And we are not going to implement things like that. But again, if you can have a GitHub issue, that would be awesome.
Right, I think that question was misunderstood from ACC3 regarding project ID, right?
Oh, it means do you support numeric string values instead of numeric? No. That's the same thing as with VictoriaLogs. We highly recommend to maintain list of string identifiers somewhere else, and after that do the mapping. The reason for that architecture of multi-tenancy. Alex, do you want to add anything?
And just to clarify, it's the project ID stuff. It's visibility. It's namespaces. It's not related to indexes. It's about separating data among namespaces, and those namespaces are numeric. The indexes are not needed for VictoriaLogs.
Yeah, and if you want using arbitrary strings as tenant IDs, it is possible to do to emulate in VictoriaLogs, as Artem said or Roman said. I didn't remember. You can use arbitrary log field as emulation of this tenant ID and put any string value and add filtering on this log field at query time. This filter will be applied to all the queries in VictoriaLogs automatically. This means this feature is named as extra filters, as Artem said. I recommend you looking at this feature. Probably it will cover your needs.
Okay, and we have one more question. Is the need for index management for setting different retention policies?
Currently, VictoriaLogs supports only a single retention policy across all the data. No, two retention policies. The first policy limits the duration of retention of the data, and so all the data is automatically deleted. And the second policy limits the size of the data stored on disk. And if the size of the data exceeds this limit, then all the per day partitions are automatically deleted. But these retention policies are applied globally to all the data stored in VictoriaLogs. Please file a feature request for more granular data retention filters, and we will add them in the future. And right now, the recommended way is to run multiple single-node VictoriaLogs instances with different retention policies, and put this select component from VictoriaLogs cluster when it will be released in front of this single-node versions with different retention policies, and get the query view across all these single-node versions of VictoriaLogs with different retention policies.
Thank you. That's it. We have no questions. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
And let me add Jean-Jerome and his presentation.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so we'll conclude today just with an update on some community news from the team and from our users, which is great to see. And I want to say thanks to my colleague Denise, who put most of these slides together, but he's not able to join us today. So this is the latest from the past 3 months or so. We always share the number of downloads that we hit, and we're probably close to the billion, but we can't confirm it just now. There's been a change in how, for example, Docker reports downloads. So we're sharing this number, but it's a great number to share anyway. And it's also nice to see the new users joining us in our community Slack, both in the general Slack for VictoriaMetrics and also the VictoriaLogs Slack channel just keeps growing, which is nice to see. And the number of new participants also keeps going up on GitHub. So nice indicators, and thanks for joining us in those different community channels. Just recently, we were in Pasadena. It's the first time we went to this event, Scale 22. It's a really nice open source conference in North America. It's the biggest open source conference in North America of that kind, and it was great to be there. We met a lot of people who didn't know about monitoring or observability, so we will be able to talk to them about that. Some people knew us, some people didn't. So it's always nice to have those conversations and also to reconnect with some users we'd spoken to before and who met us there again. And we're continuing discussions now. So thanks to everyone who came to see us. And we're looking forward to the next similar conferences throughout the year. Just before that, we were in Brussels at FOSDEM, which is a very similar conference, open source. It's the biggest European open source conference. So that was a nice lead into the North American one. And so thanks to everyone who came to see us there as well. And we'll be at different places now over the next few weeks. So first of all, my colleagues Mark and Matthias are doing another tech talk. This one is on going from chaos to clarity with VictoriaLogs. So I recommend joining that one. That's next week. Then our colleague Max is going to be in London talking at the SRE Day on cost-effective monitoring in Kubernetes, and we'll be with a bigger team at KubeCon, also in London. So please come and join us at our booth, number N503. And most of us who are on this call right now will be there, so we're looking forward to meeting you. And we'll be at the Linux Fest Northwest in the US at the end of April with a talk by our colleague Matthias on alerting and recording rules. So for KubeCon, we'll be in London, first of all, but then we'll also be in Atlanta in November. So we'd love to see you there. I know it's a bit further out, but it takes time to plan these things. So we're looking forward to seeing you either in London or in Atlanta. And if you want to do something, with us, some kind of joint activity in Atlanta, for example, please reach out. We'd love to talk to you about that. The tech talks, that's something new that we started this year. And we are on the 3rd edition. As I just mentioned, we did, so at the moment we're doing a VictoriaLogs series, which is quite timely. But we will cover different topics during those tech talks, and Mark and Matthias are running these. We're also planning to invite some guest speakers to that. We do have a number of topics that we want to cover during these tech talks, and they will be monthly initially. But if you have topics that you would like to see us cover or that you would like to join us for and discuss with us, please contact us as well on Slack, for example. We'd be happy to talk to you. The next one is then next week on Thursday, and that'll be a discussion on how to go from chaos to clarity with VictoriaLogs. And then in a kind of similar vein, we've had some nice coverage by community users on different topics, but we're increasingly seeing content produced on VictoriaLogs, which is just really nice to see. So these are user contributions, write-ups. So there's a VictoriaLogs source reading, for example, that the GrabTime team put together. We have a first article in French also, aggregating logs with VictoriaLogs. So it's nice to see that happening. So we have the VictoriaMetrics users, of course, and now we have VictoriaLogs users coming into the mix, and it's nice to see that combination of activity from the user base. So thanks to everyone who's participating in this. And we did a nice interview just recently with the team at VM Blog with Alex on VictoriaMetrics, but logs also in good detail. So feel free to check this out. The link is here, and this is in advance of us being at KubeCon as well. My colleague Huang Li has been doing this blog post series on Go, on the Go language, which has resonated so well. We're getting a lot of great feedback on this, and it's just a really cool series. It's a weekly series on the Go language. If you're interested in it, if you want to discover it, I've had feedback from some of our users who didn't really know Go so far, and they just got into the series and they just keep reading it, and they're super enthusiastic about it. So do check it out. It's in our blog section. There's a lot to go through, but it's a great series to get hooked into. And then similarly, we're writing about observability and monitoring in general. One blog post that resonated really well was by my colleague Jay Kuhn, and because he did a comparison of OpenTelemetry, Prometheus, and VM Agent, which had a lot of nice feedback. People were really interested in that. So you have the link to that article here as well. And of course, we'll keep coming out with those topics. Huang also is doing a series right now on the VictoriaMetrics components, more specifically. So it's a deep dive into some of the key components of VictoriaMetrics, and you can follow that series also in our blog section. So for this year, we did 3, I think, meetups last year, and we want to do more this year. We've set up a number of cities on meetup.com where we would like to be. So we're starting to look into who we can work with and who we can, who would like to participate and help us set up these meetups. So these are the cities that we've set up so far. If you would like to do a meetup in your city, please contact us. We're trying to set as many as we can up so that we can talk to as many of you in person. So we have the cities that you can see here. So please join the groups there, first of all, and we'll be announcing dates as we go along throughout the year now, either in those cities or in cities that you might want to suggest to us as well. So we'd love to work with you on that. Please contact me or Denise, for example, Denise Holius on our community Slack, and we'd love to talk to you about this. Right, so this is just some of the feedback we've been seeing in the different social channels that either some of you are participating in or chatting in or posting in. And in fact, the presentation that Natan Yellin gave earlier is a result of one of those communications. He's been really good, and thanks again to Natan for that, and talking about VictoriaMetrics and sharing his feedback about our products. And which is why we reached out to him and asked if he wanted to join one of our meetups, and he jumped on the opportunity and joined us today, which is great. So we'd love to do more of that. And And what triggered was his question on, whether VictoriaMetrics is the perfect software. And so you can check that thread on his LinkedIn. We love the answers to that, and we just loved the post to begin with. And it was great to have Natan on earlier. Right, and finally, so we're growing. Our team is growing, and we're looking for new colleagues to join us on a continuous basis, but more specifically right now to join our support team. So we're looking for technical support engineers. So if you're maybe that person, or if you know someone who might be interested, please contact us. You can email us at this email address, jobapp@victoriametrics.com, or just contact one of us on Slack, on LinkedIn, wherever you find us. We're also looking for software engineers continuously as well. So do contact us. If you know someone, or if you're interested yourself, we'd love to talk to you, and hopefully you'll join the team over the next while. And that's everything we wanted to share today from the community side. Thank you.
Thank you, JJ. We have a couple of questions. First one, do you have any plans to add some short videos like ClickHouse Learning?
Yes. So we're going to do a series like that to start with VictoriaMetrics Cloud, for example. So that's in our plans to come out with something like that in the next while. And then we're also going to use that new Tech Talk format that we've started with, but make shorter versions of that. So yes, so the answer is yes. And if there's particular topics that you would like us to cover in those videos, then please let us know, because we'd love to, we will do that, and we'd love to do more of it as well.
So we are user feedback driven in not even coding, but in all other things. That's nice.
Yeah, not just in the products, but in the way we communicate, and the way that we put out information. It's definitely user driven. Yes. So thanks for the feedback and for the questions.
Perfect. And also, that's more like comment that we have no meetup groups yet in US Eastern Time Zone.
Well, Eastern Time, yes, exactly. So we did San Francisco, but yeah, definitely. So if there's a city you'd like us to start with, let us know. Absolutely, we'd love to do it. And actually, one thing that we will do for next quarter is we'll have a dedicated space on our website for community questions and community topics. There'll be a community site, basically. So that's something that we'll be announcing at the next meetup, and that will come out during the next quarter. And it'll be easier then to coordinate topics such as meetups and so on once we do that.
Perfect.
But in the meantime, please contact either Denise or me on Slack. Yeah, we'd love to set those up.
Good. Thank you, JJ. Let me remove your presentation and add Alex to stage. Oh, and Jose. So I believe that's it. We have no more topics. If you still have any questions, we definitely will answer them. So feel free to ask. If no, thank you so much for watching this live on after the stream, and see you next quarter.
Yes.
I believe that will be in June. Yeah, and of course we are going to have tech talks between our meetups. So please join them as well.
Yeah, a quick remark that questions can be asked after this meetup. Just leave them on the YouTube video. We will read them. We'll try to answer them. And also, I believe we publish slides also after this meetup, so everyone can click on the links and explore what you wasn't able to explore during the live session. And yeah, and thanks again, everyone, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good
Thank you all.
rest of the day.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, everyone.